started talking about The Cheesemaker's Daughter and your debut novel, which is a very, very good book, by the way.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Kristin Vukovic's award-winning debut novel, The Cheesemaker's Daughter, was published in August 2024. She's the founder of Adriatic Writers Conference, the very first literary conference of its kind in Croatia, and has written the lifestyle articles for more than a decade for the New York Times, BBC Travel, Travel and Leisure, Virtuoso, Hemispheres, Robb Report, AFAR, Fodors, and Public Books, among others. She's received the 2024 Rising Star Awards in Culture from the Association of Croatian American Professionals and 2 Golden Pen Awards for her writing about Croatia from the Croatian National Tourist Board. Most recently in 2024, and that was most recently in 2024, May of 2024, actually. She was also named 40 Under 40 honoree by the National Federation of Croatian Americans Cultural Foundation. She holds a BA and an MFA from Columbia University, and she lives in New York City with her husband and her daughter. Kristin Vukovic's debut novel, The Cheesemaker's Daughter, was published in August of 2024, and it won 3 Zibby Awards. This is a mouth-watering platter of culture, history, and the everlasting struggle for balance between tradition and progress, says the Associated Press. This magical, richly drawn debut novel transports readers to the idyllic Croatian island of Pog, says Women's World, and when the protagonist Marina leaves New York and returns to Pog to try to save her father's failing cheese factory, she must face her past as a refugee from the former Yugoslavia country and discover where she now belongs. It deftly weaves together themes of identity and belonging, love and loss, and growth and acceptance. Reading it, I was transported to that windswept island and felt like I was watching over her shoulder or her heart. It says New York Times bestselling author Caroline Levitt. The Cheesemaker's Daughter beautifully reveals a woman who blossoms into the person she was always meant to be, says New York Times and internationally bestselling author Jill Sanopolo. It might also be the first novel that inspires cheese pairings, says the Minnesota Star Tribune. So you got a lot of great accolades for this particular novel. So, you know, kudos for that. I mean, this is a great book.
Thank you.
I know you sent it to me a long time ago.
Yeah, you have an ARC.
I actually
Final one.
Okay. It's
Yeah.
the same cover though. I mean, the cover differently.
It's the same cover, I think. Yeah. So the Julia Phillips quote is on the front. The back's a little bit different with the blurbs, but yeah, generally the same.
Okay, so this is your first book, and I know in the very back of the book you kind of give like a little idea about how you came up with the story and that kind of thing. Can you go through like the background a little bit about how you got the idea for the story, what inspired you? And obviously you went to Croatia to try to, you know, get some feel for this, but talk a little bit about your background. I mean, are you Croatian? Are you from a family that's from there? I mean,
yes,
how long have you lived in New York? And just kind of give a little background on the story.
Yeah, I'd love to. So my grandparents were from Croatia, but not from this area. They were actually from near Zagreb, in a city called Karlovac. And, you know, it was interesting. I grew up visiting them in Dayton, Ohio. You know, they had come as immigrants to the US, and so they spoke Croatian at home, but they didn't teach my father the language. So it was always sort of something just out of reach for me, but something that was also deeply familiar culturally, in ways that I couldn't articulate until I started going back after the war in the former Yugoslavia. So, you know, I started going back in 2000, in the year 2000. So the Homeland War in Croatia ended in 95. And so a few years after that, I just fell in love with this place and was also developing a career as a travel writer. So, I've been to Croatia 30 plus times. And over those visits have grown intimately familiar with different parts of the country. Specifically, this island captured my imagination from the beginning. Its terrain is completely different from many other islands in Croatia. It kind of has this moonscape. It's just a very unique island. It has 3 dialects spoken on the island. It's Croatia's only divided island between 2 counties. And I went there for a cheese reporting assignment in 2011 at the now defunct Croatian Chronicle, which was a bilingual newspaper in the U.S. And, I just learned about their cheese making, and I didn't have any really background in cheese at that point. I did do culinary writing and writing about wine and different things through a culinary lens through travel writing. But this was really something new for me, and I fell in love with the place and the people and kept coming back. And so I think when I thought of a narrative that I wanted to set in Croatia, which I always kind of knew that I would be writing something longer than travel articles, I felt like this was the perfect setting for a book, because it kind of is in some ways a microcosm, dealing with all of the themes that I'm obsessed with, like identity, belonging, and home, and all of the confluence of those themes kind of came together in this book. So it was me kind of chasing my cultural and my family's history, but not in a direct way, and in a way that is a fictional character that embodies some of my friends' experiences of being refugees from the former Yugoslavia, and then what would it mean to come home to a place when you've changed and it's changed.
Okay. So you grew up, where did you grow up?
I grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota, so I'm a Midwesterner. Okay. Yes.
Okay. And what did you major in when you were at
Columbia?
Yeah, when you were a young, college student. What were your interests as a young college?
Yeah. So I was a literature writing major as an undergraduate, and I was very fortunate. Columbia's writing department wasn't as spectacular, and I had a mentor there, Leslie Sharp, who really guided me to. Well, first I had a fellowship that bridged graduate school, and she suggested I apply for the Master's in Fine Arts there, and I think that was really. That kind of was my literary background. And then when I graduated, I did a lot of work in magazines, and then cultivating a travel writing career. So I had both sides of things, the literary background. I was editor-in-chief of the Columbia Journal, but also moving into like a more commercial space with magazines and newspapers. So I think that journalism background helped me a lot in terms of creating both the setting in a realistic way, and obviously having been there, but being able to really capture that setting, but also years of interviewing people for publications that helped me with like a realistic character development and history.
Yeah. Well, it feels real, and like I said, just to save time, because I'm kind of strapped with time with the position that I currently have right now, and I'm trying to write my 8th novel myself, which is historical fiction, and it's really like a lot of research. So it's going to be my 2nd historical fiction, but my 8th novel. So trying to fit that in, trying to do everything else. But so I listen to it on the Audible, and I do that a lot because I like driving around and listening to novels, because I feel like I'm getting more accomplished when I do that. You know what I mean?
Exactly. You're multitasking.
Exactly. So, but the narrator for this book is excellent. Like her, the way that she would vocalize the characters and change the accents.
Yes.
And everything. She was very good. And
I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah.
Did you meet her in person? Were you able to meet the person who did the narration?
I didn't, but I was very lucky. So my audio rights agent, we actually had two offers, and I ended up going with the ones I felt like Recorded was really passionate about this project, and they gave me a choice of three different audiobook narrators, and it was a tough call. When I heard her voice on other audiobook recordings, I was like, that's going to be the person that I want doing this. And she'd also done a friend of mine's book, and so I felt I'm glad to hear that you have that feeling about the audiobook. So it's great.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. She was fantastic,
Yeah,
and
yeah, Sophie Moss, amazing.
the story is really captivating. It's very interesting because it really does take you into the lifestyle of this small town Croatia that makes cheese, and they've been making cheese for centuries.
Yeah, yeah,
So, I mean, it really gives you like the understanding of the cheese making process, and it gives you the understanding of how their traditions and like the new, new technology and like the way people are starting to do things and change, and how, some of these families who've been doing something for years and years who might not have the money to make a lot of changes in their family business and how that affects people. So you really did a great job with developing these characters, because I was, listening to it and thinking to myself, wow, is this like historical fiction? Is this like a true story? Is this based on real events? Is this,
yeah. People
because
are like, are you the cheesemaker's daughter? I'm like, no, I'm not but I'm glad you think that, because it means it's realistic. So
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So much talent then. So much talent for writing then. So have you always been an avid reader too?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think, it's interesting because I'm an only child. And so growing up in Minnesota with pretty harshly cold winters, I just remember spending hours in my room reading. And, and I think that's obviously my love of literature, and then going on to study it. And writing, I think you have to be an avid reader to be a writer. I was talking about this the other day with a friend, and she was like, are you serious that there are writers that say they don't read? And I'm like, well, so I mean, I've heard that, but I don't understand it, because it's, to me, I mean, all of these, even like, I remember I had an Anne McCarthy phase with the Dragon Writers of Pern, I think it was, and like I had different, obsessive, and I'm a wide reader. Like people say, and I'm also like I just wide consumer of media. Like I'm sort of omnivorous that way.
Hmm.
All of these
Yeah.
things have influenced. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you would think that people that are writers are going to be avid readers too. I mean, I
Yeah,
have 15 feet of books behind me. I mean,
yeah,
it spans the entire length of a 15-foot wall, and
yeah,
these are just some of my books, not all of them.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
read
I've
on
had
my
I've had to cull the books. I'm like, oh my god, I don't have space for this. Like in New York, so
Yeah,
and
and
various moves. Yeah,
I read on my Kindle like
yeah,
constantly, because I prefer to read on Kindle because it's easier. You can read it in the dark and everything, take it with you. It's a lot easier than transporting a book.
yeah,
But yeah, I get it. It is odd to think that there are writers who are not readers. I've been an avid reader all my life. I mean, since I was probably
yeah.
10, 11, I read everything by Judy Blume, and back
Oh
in the
yes,
day, Judy Blume was kind of coming of age at the time that I was about 11 or 12. I mean, it was the late 70s, and
yeah.
she was who everybody was reading, and I read everything by her over and
Yeah.
over and over again.
Love Judy Blume. Yeah. I mean, I also had like an Anne of Green Gables phase. I had so many different, and I had a friend down the street who was a really avid reader too. So I just like take all of her books after she'd whipped through them. So yeah.
So do you still write for magazines?
So occasionally, I mean, I actually leading up to this book, I did a couple of articles I really liked on like she's sort of like a promotion thing. So I did one for Afar. I think it was titled your cheese can tell you where to travel next or something like that. This is a real thing. It's tyromancy. One of my travel writing colleagues actually practices this, but it has roots in like, from ancient Greece. So it's like reading, it's like reading tea leaves, but it's reading cheese, like the veins in cheese. And it's really fascinating. Anyway, so I did one on that. And then I did one on
But some cheese might not have veins.
True. So what she says is like she can basically read like it's a wedge of cheese. Ones with like veiny or multi-textured, largely hard cheeses are better. Aged cheeses are better. But yeah, she it's a very interesting reading that yeah, it's harder to read like just a straightforward Gouda or something probably, but she's really quite spectacular and obviously a storyteller by profession. So she's also does travel writing. So that was a fun article. And yeah, I still do like occasionally, and obviously my specialties in Croatia. So I still do some writing about Croatia, but less frequently now as I'm concentrating on my second novel and building a more literary career. So.
Okay, so with this particular novel, I mean, it could even, I mean, the Cheesemaker's Daughter could almost be like a historical fiction because it's set.
Yeah.
What year is it? Is it in the early 90s? Is it
Yeah,
set?
so it's really actually, and the time that it was set, I chose that really carefully. So it's the year before Croatia joins the European Union. So it's another juncture in Croatia's history that I think is really important in the sense that you have a real shift into like a much, from socialism to capitalism, and things that are companies that are becoming privatized, and just a general shift in like not just in a sort of financial sense for people, and eventually like Croatia gets on the euro much later, but their currency was the kuna. It's really a shift in like becoming again part of something larger. Like Yugoslavia was obviously, Croatia was part of Yugoslavia, and when that started to break off, with Slovenia seceding first, um, you had the loss of that country for a lot of people, which meant a lot, and that started fracturing. I mean, the war started in 91 in Croatia, generally wrapped up in 95, but continued on as you had Kosovo and Serbia and Montenegro were the last parts of the Yugoslav Federation. So I think where it's set, it does reference that time in the 90s because that's when my character left to go to the US as a refugee. And then she comes back in the year before Croatia's joining the EU. So she left a country called Yugoslavia and comes back to Croatia. And in that sense, going back to like that thematic, she's changed, having lived half her life outside of the country where she was born and raised, and then coming back to that country. And, essentially, I think a lot of people can relate to that. It's kind of universal, right? Like if you go back to a place, even if it's in the same country, you've changed, it's changed, people have moved on. In this case, it's quite dramatic because she's, had this experience in New York and then comes back with that half American perspective.
Yeah, and I really liked the way that you added kind of it was almost like a secret villain. Like
Yes.
you didn't realize who the villain was going to be. And a lot of times, when you're writing the structural stories, you tend to have somebody who's going to be a bad character, or there's going to be, there's going to be something that the main character has to overcome, and like she's got to get to another side of this, and she's got to figure something out. But then a lot of times will have a villain in the story to kind of put twist in it. This had a great twist with the villain.
Awesome. I'm glad you felt that way.
I mean, just absolutely had no idea that person was going to become the villain in the story. So that was a really interesting twist. I enjoyed that. but one thing I kept thinking, is there going to, because there was a lot of sadness in it
Yeah.
too.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering at the end, because there's almost like two love interests in
Yeah.
this story. You've got her husband, she's separated from him. They had a miscarriage or two. And she's struggling with the fact that, a doctor has told her she's not going to be able to have children, and she's devastated
Yeah.
by that news. And she really feels like, well, what am I going to accomplish or something? And she has all these, how am I going to, I can't go back to my husband, or I don't feel comfortable with that or something. And their relationship has kind of severed. And then there's Luca, who
Yeah.
was, from her past,
Yeah.
first love and all that. And I at the end, I kept thinking, because I know the husband comes to the funeral, and they kind of reconnect a little bit, and he's kind of asking for her to return. But I don't remember it, because close to the end of the book, I don't remember who she ends up. I don't think she chooses anybody at the end.
Yeah.
But
I mean, so this was really
I
interesting.
wasn't sure, because I
Yeah.
kind of.
So I left it a little open ended, and there's also the Californian guy, which which I don't know if you remember him at the end.
Yeah, when they were at the World Cheese,
Yes,
what
yes,
is the name of that? The World Cheese Awards or something?
World Cheese Awards. Yeah,
The World
exactly.
Cheese Awards.
Yeah,
And
I
he's
really, I wanted her to be standing on her own 2 feet at the end. I didn't want her to be dependent on a man for her happiness.
right.
I wanted to leave the possibilities open, but I also think that, there are some possibilities in life when you've lived a separate life, and certain decisions are made, right? And then certain sort of doors close, but others open. So I kind of wanted her to be in a place where she was in a good place herself at the end, and she was feeling solid in her sort of own decisions and life trajectory, but also open to the sense of possibility. Like it was funny. I was on another interview, and they were like, well, what about her love life in the future? And I'm like, it's open, because I really see her as being in a place where, she's come into her own in a certain way, in a position of strength. And I think, she'll attract a completely different energy
Yeah.
with that realization. Yeah.
Yeah, because the former husband, Marco, I think his name was,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
he offers to move to Croatia.
Yeah.
So I mean, but then I couldn't
Yeah.
figure out by the end of the book if he really did that, or
Yeah.
not.
I mean, I think, like, in that scene that you're talking about, she's definitely come to a different place throughout the months that she's been living on, well, basically a year that she's been living back at home on the island. And his family, I mean, he's Croatian American, but born and raised in America, and there is a big difference. So I think, he's kind of trying to be like, well, I can change too. And I think she's kind of seeing that, you know, being with him again would be just going back into those same patterns and that
Right.
same context. And she's grown beyond that at that point.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I mean, it does kind of have a happy ending, and
I think it's happy. I mean, I think
it
it's
doesn't.
bittersweet in a way.
It leaves you with a lot of possibilities
Yes,
at the end of the book.
absolutely.
So, talk about the cover. Did you help design the cover for the book,
Yeah.
um, and
Yeah.
talk about how you kind of worked that out?
So I love this cover. I did have a hand in the design, which was I'm glad when people say they like it because I was given, like, I don't know, 4 different templates, and I'd sort of given them the equivalent of a mood board with like, I don't even know if I might have provided a few images from photos I'd taken on the island, and then I sort of gave like word bubbles, word blurbs, and sheep, sea, like harsh winds. I don't know what they were. It was just all different, hopefully evocative for the cover designer. And I got like, I love water and I love the sea. I'm in love with the Adriatic Sea, and I got like three different water ones, and then this was the one with sheep, and I'm also obsessed with sheep. So this spoke to me, and also with like the teal sheep, because I feel like Marina's a little bit of a black sheep in the family, and she kind of does her own thing, and in my opinion, she's kind of a bellwether. She's a leader in the end, and was a leader all along, but really didn't embrace that in the same way that she does when I think we come to the end of the story. And so I wanted to sort of have a, I think this cover evokes like sort of the extremes of the island, bold colors, and also, like I said, the black sheep, which to me was important. So yeah, they
Okay.
definitely gave me a lot of. I had a lot of input, and then we sort of worked with the fonts, and sort of iterated on different versions.
Okay. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the book that you're currently working on. Have you
Yeah.
finished it? Are you still in the process of writing it?
Yeah.
Do you
Oh
have a
my God.
date for it
Well,
or release?
having, now that you're on your eighth novel, you probably know it's like working on a book it's such a relative thing. It's like when, people have asked me when does it end? And I'm like, when it gets published, because then you can't change anything. So, yes, I have like a 90,000 word draft of my second novel, which is currently with, um, a developmental editor, and I'll get her notes, probably hopefully in mid-September. And I'm not saying a ton about it right now, except that it's a very different, it's a departure from this novel, and it's set in the Hamptons. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Cool.
yep.
Yes, I was in the Hamptons a few years ago. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Was in Sag Harbor and Montauk.
Oh yes, I'm in
Yeah.
Amagansett right now as I'm zooming in here. So
Okay, okay. Yeah, well, I do travel to New York on occasion, but I have been traveling to Boston, and I was just on Martha's Vineyard a few weeks ago. But
oh nice.
most of my travel right now has been to Boston several times, and then Lexington and Concord because of my historical fiction that I'm currently
Oh,
writing. And
fabulous.
so it takes place around the time of the Tea Party, and then it takes the reader through to the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and it is going to be in honor of America 250. So
Amazing.
it's going to be
Amazing.
dedicated in honor of America 250. So it's historical fiction, but
Yeah.
extremely historically based around John Hancock and the Sons of Liberty. So that's why I'm in
Oh, fun.
Boston
Yay,
and
I can't wait. So
Lexington,
where are
Concord.
you? Where are you with your book now? In terms of like yeah,
it it's harder to write historical fiction
yeah,
because of so much research. When it
yes.
comes to writing like straight up fiction, like this one, The Tulip Tea, this one probably took me 3 months maybe to write.
Wow.
Straight up fiction a lot faster.
Yeah.
Um, but no, this particular novel I have been working on since January of 2023.
I mean, also not
But
that
like
long.
I said, I'm at a position right now where I am working full time, and it's just not allowing me a
Yeah.
lot of margin and a lot of free time to
Yeah.
work on it, unfortunately. But I'm trudging along inch by
Well,
inch, trying to
good.
get myself to it.
I mean, it
Get it
really
out
is
there.
like, I for this book, I mean, I have to tell you, like, I was terrified when, um, well, terrified, but I was also, so I gave an ARC to one of my contacts on the island of Pog, and I was like, please tell me any, because I could make minor changes at that point, like it was typeset, but I could still, if like a word was, because I'm not a native speaker of Croatian, and like I said, they have Pashki dialect there, and it's different. Anyway, I was like, let me know if I got anything totally wrong. I mean, there are things I've exacerbated, like the islands division, which in real life is not as contentious. I made it for metaphorical purposes more extreme. I mean, and I took liberties with with different things that are not, generally speaking, it should feel true. And most things are hopefully accurate. But I did take liberties where I felt it was necessary. And, it's interesting I mean, this is sort of like near historical fiction, but I really did want to have the essence right. Because I knew Croatians would read this, and Croatian Americans would read this, and I'd be like called out on different things if it wasn't. So,
So
yeah.
you have confidence that they were okay with everything that you had written.
Yeah, she said, I think her greatest compliment, and she is, by the way, a cheesemaker's daughter, and it's not based on her, but like she was my litmus was realistic enough. And she said, it's clear you have a very good understanding of this place. So I felt like that was good enough
Yeah,
for me. Yeah.
it's a very transportive novel into not only her, the main character, Marina's plight in life, and her struggles. I mean, it's very realistic feeling. I mean, you're a very talented writer, and I thought the story was very interesting. It's a great novel.
Thank you.
Um, it's a great story. So certainly looking forward to your next one. I know you probably don't have a release date yet since it just went to the editor,
Yeah,
and you're not saying a whole lot about it, except that it's set in the Hamptons, which
it's set
sounds
next.
intriguing enough as it
Yeah.
is. But I won't keep you. And I apologize again for my platform on
Oh,
my other
no
account
worries.
was not allowing me to go live. And I did not realize that because, like I said, I haven't done this podcast since February
Yeah, well, I'm
and
so
did
glad
not
that we
know.
were able to
So,
connect, though. That's so great.
oh
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, absolutely,
it's been great.
absolutely. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Kristin. Thank you for being on the Talking Book Atlanta, even though we're on my main platform
Yeah,
instead of Talking Book. But I appreciate you being on today. I appreciate you sharing about your story, your book, and your writing process. And congratulations on a great novel, and
thank
wish you more
you.
success. And if I'm heading up to New York, I'll hit you up and tell you,
Please.
we can get a drink or something.
Would love that.
Um,
Awesome.
okay. All right.
Awesome.
Well, you
Yeah, and I can't wait for yours. So you'll have to keep me posted on your I love historical fiction. So,
Okay, yeah,
yeah.
I've got one here. The Leader of Liberty, Tale of America's First Firing
Yeah.
is my first historical fiction. It's set around Benjamin Talmadge, who was the Second Continental Dragoon Commander during the American Revolution, and he was the espionage leader for what historians will later call the Culper Spy Ring. So
Mm.
Washington spies, for those people who are into the TV show Turn, that used to be on AMC. It was on Netflix for a while. I think it's on Amazon Prime now. But anyway, it's one of those. Some are huge fans, and out of Setauket, Long Island, is where the Spy Ring members are from. So if you're familiar with
Oh,
Setauket on Long Island, there is a history museum there called Three Village History.
oh, I'm
And
not, but
you can even do Tri-Spy tours. I noticed that Margot Asiri was on with us live a few minutes ago. But her tours, Tri-Spy tours in Setauket, will take you hiking, biking, or walking through the areas where the spies were
oh
during
wow,
the revolution. So yeah,
amazing. That sounds
she was one of
incredible.
the people I worked with. She was one of the people I worked with when I was working on that novel
Do
back in.
you, when you research, just quickly, do you like, I mean, my favorite part of research personally is like going and talking to people live. And, some people like just diving into a library, which I also like, but I just love the connection with people and having those kind of interactions.
Right. No, I think it's important to go to the actual
Yeah.
areas.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to be in the place where the action happened.
Yeah.
So when I was doing research for Leader of Liberty, I was going to Setauket. I was going to Tappan, New York. I was going to Manhattan. I was going to Connecticut. I
Yeah.
was going to these places where the spies were. They lived. They were
So
doing
cool.
action. I was talking, working with historians when I was in those places. And then, like I said, for the last couple of years, since December of 2023, I've been heading up to Boston, and I've been doing tours in Boston, Quincy,
Nice.
Mass. Most of it is set around Boston, but Lexington and Concord, I was there in April for the 250th battles of Lexington and Concord. So I was there on the green at 5:30 in the morning.
Wow.
because that's when the battles were getting ready to take place in real time.
Mhm.